Hi, everyone. We are live. My name is Stacy Nell. Thank you for joining in on our Lunch and Learn. I am the executive director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, and this is our weekly Lunch and Learn. It's just a half an hour, short little snippet out of the week to pass on some information that might be of interest to the Black community, but to other people as well. I've gotten lots of feedback about this. So today, I am thrilled, thrilled to be joined by one Frances Bradley Robinson. And I am not going to bury the lead. She's my mom. But she's not just here because she's my mom. She's here because she's a pretty incredible person. Hi, good morning, Miss. Hello, good morning, Miss Robinson. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I appreciate the invitation. I was shocked to get it, but I'm happy to be here.
I know I've been doing this for almost a year and you're on now. So Carrie should feel good because Carrie's like, it took me that long to invite Carrie on. So here we go. All right, let me tell everyone a little bit about Frances Bradley Robinson. She's a native of Kansas City, Kansas, having attended the Douglas Elementary, Northeast Junior, and Sumner High Schools. She holds 2 undergraduate degrees from the University of Kansas, a Bachelor of Music degree with a major in piano performance, and a Bachelor of Music Education, majoring in both instrumental and vocal music. She also has a Master's of Arts degree in Public School Administration from the University of Northern Iowa. As a professional musician, she has taught both instrumental and vocal music for 39 years in the public school systems in Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. Upon retirement from the KCK school system, Ms. Robinson found her next career as a historian and author with 2 books under her belt. The first one called From Stressed to Blessed, chronicling her successful battle against breast cancer, and her second book, Reasons to Persist, a history of her grandfather, Issaac Franklin Bradley Sr. And yes, full disclosure, she is my mom, and I hope to be half the person that she is when I grow up. Okay, so
You
mom.
are already twice the person already.
I don't know. But so, all right. So the first question I ask everybody who comes on my Lunch and Learns, you should know this because I know you watch them. What are you having for lunch?
Well, since I just finished breakfast, as a retired person, I don't have to get up quite as early as some other people. So I have a late breakfast. And I think I know I will have leftovers from a wonderful dinner that I had last night,
Yes, good
which
dinner.
was
That's my
what,
lunch too. Is leftovers from dinner last night. Okay,
right.
now I didn't just ask you on here because you're my mom. You're awesome. But the reason why I'm asking you on here is because you have, after your full career, almost 40 years working in the public education system, as a vocal music, listen, people, a middle school vocal music teacher. So if you don't think her place in heaven is assured by the fact that she was a middle school vocal music teacher, just think about where your voice was in middle school. She has gone on to a second career, like I mentioned. Now you're like an author and a historian. And so, how did you make that transition? I mean, by all means, talk about your life as a vocal music teacher. But how did you make that transition into writing?
Well, I guess I retired in 2006, so I've been retired for a long time from public school music teaching. And, but it was actually the battle with breast cancer that I went through that you, my daughter, inspired me to write about the breast cancer journey. And at that time I didn't know my name, so I wasn't able to write anything. But when I did decide to write, I decided to include several stresses that I had gone through in a very short period of time, and I put them all into a book called From Stress to Blessed. And again, that was maybe 3 years after the initial introduction to breast cancer. And then when I wrote that book, many people said that, well, that was a nice, good book. Why don't you write a second one? And so my decision to write a second one was based on the fact that I had presented a biography of my grandfather in connection with the Niagara movement, which is a forerunner of the NAACP. And when I said, well, I thought that would be a good idea. That would be easier than the first book, because all I would do is copy the little bio that I had about him, and then and use that more or less as chapter 1 or an introduction, and then just reprint a couple of pamphlets or a couple of books that he wrote over 100 years ago, and put that in there because they were so old. And I thought at that time I had the only copies of them, which turned out to not be the truth. But in checking with my publisher, my niece, your cousin, um, I found out that there might be some copyright infringements. And so I went through the Library of Congress, and they assured me that anything written before 1923 was in public domain. And two of those books fell into that category. But then at that point, I later found out that the first book that was of the largest of the group had been republished because it's in public domain, had been republished by over a half dozen publishers, much less languages, but
So
much.
you're talking about I.F. Bradley Sr.'s book, his first book.
Yeah, his book. Oh my goodness, yes, his book. Yeah, and so that I decided that if I wrote a book, there is no need. And then I found out that you had access to it on the internet for free. So I thought, oh, there goes my second book. The biography is about 3 pages long. Now, what else can I do? But I decided instead to delve more deeply into his life if I could find something. I went to I thought it was Linda Hall Library and at UMKC. It's called something else right now. But well, I went to several sources and I couldn't find anything. But a lady at the library in the archives division looked into something and said, "Oh, here's some information on the internet. I'll give you this address." And she said, "You can go home and find that." I went home. I found it. I looked more. I found other mentions of what he did. I mean, some people would focus on the fact that he was one thing, and I guess we can get it, well, that he was the first graduate, African-American graduate at KU. Another source would say that he was the first judge in Kansas City. Another source would say that he was a charter member of the Niagara Movement, which is the forerunner of the NAACP. Another source would say that he was, they focused on different things. And I became fascinated with the different sources that would say that he was, different things, but they were never anything all in one place. So I decided that my job would be then to write a book that put all of those sources together, maybe in some kind of chronological order. And by doing that, I over 50, nearly 100 sources that, and maybe a lot of them repeat the same thing, by the way. So it's, just here and there, little tidbits. And what I did was I was able to create a book about his life, and which I did in 2018. But since then, I've become obsessed, as you have often told me, that I've become obsessed. And since I wrote the book, I found even more information. So what I'm going to do is present this information on Thursday, March 2nd at the Kansas City Library, which, well, plug. Okay.
Plug away.
It's going to be in the form of a video, because I can time what I'm saying with the actual evidence of what I'm going to present. As a matter of fact, I start this video presentation, which is why I'm thinking that you're saying I'm obsessed with it, is because my first version had maybe bullets or PowerPoint bullets that said first judge, or it maybe said first graduate or something like that. But this particular version of the video includes actual evidence from something that someone else wrote. In other words, if I found there's something that said he was the first whatever, then I have that on the video with a clip so that you can see the evidence. As a matter of fact, the video contains very few of my own words. They're always something that someone else said. And so that I didn't depend on hearsay, because maybe people have heard about what he did, of people who are alive, not right now, who more than likely were not
alive. Yeah.
Familiar with him.
Let's back up and just give like the 30,000 foot view. So Issaac Franklin Bradley Sr.
Yes.
So why is he? So just give us the baseline biography about who he was.
Okay.
Like, when was he born? How did he get to Kansas? what, and sort of give us that little brief chronological history of him.
Okay, he was born in 1862, a couple of months before Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which means that it was reportedly, and there's a backstory on that, but reportedly supposed to free slaves. But he was born of enslaved parents in Cambridge, Saline County in Cambridge, Missouri. Well, he had very little. He had very little while he was growing up. But a young man came to town that impressed him to the extent that he decided that he would like to, be like that young man. And he was at that time a graduate of Lincoln University. So my grandfather, Issaac Franklin Bradley Sr. Decided that he would try to go to Lincoln University in Jefferson City. And he made his way there, and he did graduate. And from then he continued to seek more education, and he found that the University of Kansas in Kansas would offer him an opportunity to study law. And at that time, the universities in Missouri were not exactly welcoming to African Americans, and especially in the upper degrees past the undergraduate. So he made his way to Kansas and enrolled in KU. And so he eventually became the first African American to graduate from the University of Kansas School of Law. Okay, and so from then he moved to he met a young lady in Lawrence, Kansas, named Mamie Johnson, and they married in 1891. Let me back up and say he graduated from KU in 1887 as the first African American to graduate from the University of Kansas School of Law. Then anyway, they married in 1891, moved to Kansas City, Kansas, and maybe I should back up one more time. I'm sorry.
You don't have to give the whole presentation. This is like just to whet people's appetites.
Okay.
Like you could just.
We
were talking about the Niagara movement. Go ahead. I've heard this story, so I'm just like.
Right. He graduated in 1887. In 1889, before he married, he became he moved to Kansas City, Kansas, and became the first elected judge in Kansas City, Kansas in 1889. Then he married in 1891, and that was when he married. And then they moved into their new house. I even found a picture of the home that they lived in. I mean, these things that I found out even since I wrote the book have been, very fascinating. And I won't skip to that. I was going to say I have some more that I will not have time to put into the video before Thursday. But anyway, so but moving on from there. He was also he did quite a bit of work. I mean, he had law was his profession in Kansas City, Kansas. But he was also an entrepreneur who was instrumental in starting many businesses in Kansas City. But he was a really significant part of why Sumner High School became Sumner High School. Now, the history of Sumner High School, in a sense, is that it was created because of legislation that said that Kansas City, Kansas would be able to create a separate but equal house.
This is way before Brown v. Topeka, Brown v. Board of Education.
Yes, this is 1904.
Yeah, so definitely separate but equal, right?
Yeah, separate but equal. In other words, it started because of a confrontation between a African American and a white student who was a student at what they called the Kansas City High School at that time. Well, Issaac Franklin Bradley Sr. was assigned to be the attorney for the African American youth who was accused of murdering this white student. the African American youth was named Louis Gregory. Well, in spite of all of the evidence and everything that was created in that trial, it Louis Gregory was eventually sentenced, and they did. I'm trying to make it short, but they did decide that Kansas City, Kansas could have a separate school, in which case Sumner High School was created. And so my connection there is to kind of explain what Issaac Franklin Bradley connection to Sumner High School was. So I have that a little bit of that in the presentation. Everything that I say could go on for maybe an hour each.
Everything. I've heard it all.
Everything has a backstory, but
we only have half an hour here, Ma. It's only half an hour.
Then he later became he was invited by W.E.B. Du Bois, national activist, to become a member of the Niagara movement, which was the forerunner of the NAACP. So he has that as a part of his background. He also he wrote a trilogy of treatises on political science or economics. The first one being called The Reign of Reason. That's the one I was going to use in the book, but I ended up not doing that. The second was the truth as to social equity. The point of it is that he really dealt with issues that in 1900 we would think that we would not have to deal with now. So I'm going to really cut to the chase in that the essence of what I'm presenting on Thursday is the fact that what we're dealing with now, he dealt with 100 years ago. Of course, in the meantime, you have Martin Luther King and all those activists in the 1960s who dealt with it. And before the 1900s, when my grandfather did that, there was Frederick. I mean, it's something it's a subject matter that's been going on for so long that it's just a wonder that we're still doing that. And I'm going to put in another little plug here. When I decided on the title of the book, which is called Reasons to Persist, it was kind of, I was playing around with the words and everything. And I even kind of made up a poem about that, which I really, I thought it was cheesy at first, and I knew that you would think it was cheesy. You might, but then the more I thought about it, it's really appropriate for the presentation. And I'll just recite my little poem here. It's please. The more things change. Okay, we're talking about the fact that it was called maybe slavery. We had the Civil Rights Acts. We have the Voting Rights Acts. I mean, they have different names for, that have
critical race theory and social emotional
critical race theory. Yeah, all of that. So the poem is this, and I'd have a little bit better explanation in the presentation, but the poem is: the more things change, the more we find that they remain the same. Those struggles that we face today may take a different name, but as for social justice and equal rights, we must insist that there were, are now, and will always be reasons to persist. And that's the name of the book. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's really a snapshot.
Well, no, I mean, it's and I was glad to be able to have you on today, because you are giving this a much more fuller presentation about the life of I.F. Bradley Sr. on this coming Thursday, March 2nd, at the Kansas City, Kansas downtown public library, the one on Minnesota. And the presentation starts at 6:30.
Yes.
And
6:30 sharp.
And she will start on time. So all of you who know me, who are like, Stacy's going to start on time, now you know where I get it from. You will start on time, and you will be able to go into more depth, because, like, for example, we only have a half an hour here, and I've seen your presentation several times, and it's longer than a half an hour. And I think for me, I was born, I have often said that I wasn't born like in 1880. You said he was born in 1882, 1862.
62.
So I wasn't born in 1862. I wasn't born, enslaved, and I wasn't born, in the 1940s. I didn't go through the civil rights era in the 60s. I was born after that. I mean, I'm no spring chicken, but I was still born after the 1960s. And that so much of my life I'm very well aware that so much of my life looks the way it does because, I.F. Bradley Sr. graduated from law school. And I.F. Bradley Jr. also went on to become a lawyer, not a judge, but a lawyer in KCK. And that you yourself, and I kind of glossed over it in the biography. I want to take a couple minutes just to tout my mom's horn here. I mean, like you too went to the University of Kansas. You have degrees in music, and that my life is not the way my life is just because I'm fantastic. I think I'm fantastic, but there are so many people who came before me who paved the way, who did the work, who fought against racism, who fought against segregation, who fought to have schools, let Black people in. I mean, just everything that happened before I got here. And yeah, is it sad that we're still fighting in many ways the exact same fight? Yes. Yes, it is sad. I think it stinks. But I think because you did such a good job of instilling in me the history of what it means to be Black in America, that's why I'm like, well, it's my turn to sort of pick up this mantle and keep the fight moving forward. So I know your talk on Thursday is going to be primarily about I.F. Bradley Sr. Do you want to just say a couple words about I.F. Bradley Jr., your father? So because it's there's a whole legacy in Wyandotte County.
Well, he was also an attorney in Wyandotte County, and he had a very successful practice. He worked on many important cases, especially during the 1960s, during the Civil Rights era. And again, he was a second generation graduate of the University of Kansas. He was a charter member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, he was very proud of that, very active in that. And he was active in the fraternity, chapter in Kansas City, Kansas, and Lawrence, Kansas. I need to be specific about that. But yet he was also active in the community. He marched during the 1960s as I did. So again, we were doing the same thing 50 years ago that we're doing now. But Issaac Franklin Bradley Jr. was he had a very successful practice in Kansas City, Kansas.
Yay. Yeah. See, and so mom has all this information about I.F. Bradley Sr. and a lot of it. And the presentation on the 2nd is going to be very informative. There's a lot of history. I know there's stuff that you didn't even talk about here because I know he was involved in the founding of Douglas Hospital. He was, you talked about the founding of Sumner High School, but then Douglas Hospital in Wyandotte County, and just so many institutions that were in the Black community in Wyandotte County that your grandfather had a hand in and had a connection to. It's pretty impressive, and it's just how Wyandotte County came to be. So yeah.
Right. That is true. So I'm sorry I did not mention the Douglas Hospital, which was a historically a very significant institution because it was the only only hospital that was available to African Americans in the nation, but it also served anybody. It did not just serve anybody, just African Americans, but because African Americans were not served in the other hospitals, it was significant because when they opened the hospital, they opened it up to everybody, but then African Americans could also be served at the same time. And so that hospital was from about 1898 and until it closed in 1977.
1977. I kind of remember that. I remember driving past it when I was a little girl. But okay, so I'm going to put in the chat just the information about the lecture that is going on, just the day, the time, the address of the library. Please note, if you are making your way down there, there is parking available behind the library as well. This event is free and open to the public. So by all means, come on down and hear the presentation. It is interesting. I think I don't take the story for granted, even though I've heard the story several times. I don't take the stories for granted, nor did I ever take the stories for granted that I heard growing up listening to the Robinsons talk to each other about life in Wyandotte County. So if you have any interest in Black history, yes, Kansas history or Wyandotte County history, or the history of just our history in general, please do mark your calendars for this Thursday, March 2nd. So Ma, anything else? Well, actually, let me go check my notes. Oh, that's that. I've asked all the questions I wanted to make sure I asked. Anything you want to pitch? What's your next project?
You don't want to know. No, I'm obsessed with the information that keeps coming in. As a matter of fact, some of the benefits of these presentations is that people in the audience have something else to offer. Again, I don't just take hearsay, but if they can lead me to the source of that information, I will include it. I was working on the one for Issaac Franklin Bradley Jr.
Yes.
And that's when you suggested that I start working on my own. I will suggest a lot. I will suggest in the presentation that history, everybody has a story, and that we need to start writing this down. So I would like to say that maybe this what I've done with Issaac Franklin Bradley Jr., as not that I'm the first person that's ever done it, but maybe it will inspire others to look into their own history. We can find a lot on the internet that I never dreamed was there, but I'm in the generation that maybe just didn't have the dream there in the first place. But the young people know about these things, and so it's been fascinating for me to find out information that I have found out. You can look up your own name anymore, and that will tell you a lot of information that you maybe have forgotten or hadn't thought about. So anyway, but
when I Google myself, Google has my birthday wrong. So my daughter always laughs like,
"Oh yes, I noticed that. I noticed that. I don't know where they got that from."
But anyway, how did that information get wrong out there?
Right, but you can correct it. There was an incorrect.
People don't even know when my birthday is.
There was an error at the Kansas Historical Society with regards to the first African American that graduated from the University of Kansas School of Law. It cited a John Clark. And I found out about it when I was doing a presentation on Zoom, and someone who's living in Texas said that they always thought it was John Clark. And I thought, whoa, I've never heard that. And so when I contacted the Historical Society, they said that yes, that's what they had. But then they would check it out. And of course, they checked with KU and found out their error. And they corrected it that day. That very day. There was no wait, because I spoke with Matt. Her name is Matt, and I forget. I'm right now, I don't have the note in front of me, but she corrected it immediately. But there is sometimes incorrect information. So everything in the presentation was, I know I made sure that there were at least 2 or 3 references to the material, because
find the information.
Yeah, the last time I did this with Sumner High School, I had something in there that I could not verify. I knew that I had seen it, but I couldn't verify it. And that was that Kansas City, Kansas was incorporated in 1888. And that is not true. So I've taken that out of the video. So everything in the video for Thursday is verified somewhere, and I show the reference to it. So
cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to Thursday, and I have to tell you, I think the girls are going to come with me. And you know what? You have inspired. You've inspired me. You've inspired a lot of people. Mark Dupree has been on this show, and he loves you. It's well documented that Mark Dupree, the Wyandotte County DA, just thinks the sun rises and sets around you. But you're also inspiring, my children. My daughter, my 14-year-old's getting ready to go into high school, and she's already excited about the fact that as a sophomore, she gets to take a Black history class. So. Yeah, she's like, "Ooh, I can take." She thought she had to wait till her junior year. She's like, "No, I can take it in my sophomore year." So, I think there is interest, even as there's efforts on certain fronts to sort of tamp down or not talk about Black history, or somehow I don't even really know. I I struggle to understand it, but it is something that people are definitely interested in. So we're almost done. And you know what? Jonella Holmes, who is the executive director of the Kansas Black Farmers, since we're talking about what's going on in Wyandotte County, she has dropped on into the chat that they're still providing COVID vaccines at the Willa Gill Center at 5th in Nebraska on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So through April 30th. So thank you, Janella, for that information about what's going on in KCK. We're at a half an hour. See, the time just flies. I look forward to seeing you, Mom, on Thursday. By the way, everyone, yesterday was her birthday. She turned a young, can you guess how old she is? Just what? She looks like, I would say she's 59, but that would be, no, you just turned 79. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ma. Happy birthday to you. So thanks everyone for indulging me talking to my mom for a half an hour, but I wanted to make sure to advertise for her speech on Thursday.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say, Ma?
It's been a pleasure to be on this program. I didn't know how quickly the time would go and just how much to say and what, but again, I was shocked when I received the invitation, but that you would take time, but I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And I love my daughter, but we have a little ritual that that I won't, should I go through?
No.
I love you more.
Okay. Okay. And on that note, everyone, I will see you next week. Have a fantastic week. Bye.